Let's hold off what's going on in the Barter Theater for just a second. What do you say? Hey, it's Marky, Billson, Tri-City Sports Now, 1420 WEMB Sports Radio. And that spring football game, I'm planning on being there. Tell you who's going to be the quarterback at ETSU. And actually, the guy who got through spring football this year without the... I think that's the whole thing right there. You know, I mentioned 2 years ago, Quentin Darmody went through the orange and white game. That's also going to be played. It's going to be played at 6 o'clock. Didn't throw an incomplete pass. Oh, boy, Darmody's there. Remember, he was the quarterback really of record in the Vols' 55-0 victory against Tennessee Tech. Maybe it was just Tennessee Tech, but hey, it's Tennessee, their FCS brethren when they can, you know. But anyway, the point here being that I don't know what you get out of these spring football games. I've known guys who've like been big stars coming out of spring football games, and you never hear from them again. It's not because also they quit the team or they, you know, something happens to them, you know, one way or the other. You know, look at Eli Wolf was supposed to be really, really good. Here's the situation. Now the connection is available and it's all well and clear. It's talking a little bit about how historically ETSU, and it doesn't really have to be this way, is subservient to UT. They're not in the shadow. Oh, they're in the shadow. But, you know, the Citadel is in the shadow of South Carolina. But they're not subservient to them. And again, that might be because they stand alone as a military institution. And as I mentioned before, every now and then the Citadel has defeated South Carolina in football. But it's two very different schools. ETSU is subservient to UT. It really is. And what to do to stop that? Well, it's not going to happen if you lose your president to UT to be the chancellor now, is it? And I was seeing how this could affect ETSU. All right, let's look at Brian Nolan. He's no doubt improved the Buccaneers athletically. The Bucs win now. Exception of women's basketball, the Bucs win. And as I said, if you're a Vols fan, and that's what you care about at Tennessee, maybe that means that Nolan, although he comes from the smallest of any of the schools, I don't know. The 28 seasons. So ETSU fans then have a right to say, look, if it is Nolan that goes to UT, what'll happen to the Bucs? And I will say this, previous president, Paul Stanton, you could see that things were going for the worse athletically a generation ago when Paul Stanton was the president. And it's not as if, you know, you can say, well, when Paul Stanton became the president, Ed DeChilis was the coach, and he brought ETSU back to the to be, it wasn't the athletic director, but it worked for the athletic director at Wyoming. Then you had kind of a tough guy, hard scrabble man, but he's got a pretty decent legacy in bringing back football at Southeast State. When he went to Oregon State became a baseball power. They've won 3 national championships since then. This is Oregon State, which isn't good athletically, historically. He also now sits on the playoff board at last I saw. The football playoff. He sits on that board, Todd Stansberry. He quit, and a few months later, ETSU dropped football. That should tell you something. And who did they hire? A tennis coach to be the AD. Okay, that was what it was back then. What will it be? If Nolan goes to UT, what will it be? Let me just ask you, could a new president approve head basketball coach Steve Forbes making $650,000 annually? Because the emphasis placed on sports could be expanded, ETSU could even grow athletically, and here's what I want. The quote-unquote new arena that the area so desperately needs, not just for the Buccaneers, a new arena could put them back in a national ranking. Freedom Hall, and now it's an obsolete arena that's too small. It could bring in stuff. It could bring in possibly a G League team. It could bring in not only more concerts, more events, stuff for the entire, not even the sports fans, and say, boy, that's a lot more than what Forbes makes as compared to his son. We have these adjunct professors who are demonstrating about the lack of pay they receive. Now, again, I don't blame Brian Nolan for throwing his hat in the ring and becoming a finalist to be the chancellor at UT. I really don't. They pay more. No, why he'd seek. But when David Blackburn was practically I'm not suggesting Nolan should have the same fate at ETSU if he doesn't become the chancellor at Tennessee. But if he stays at ETSU, sort of a extension of how the Tri-Cities region feels about themselves to Knoxville. And folks, there really aren't a whole lot of metropolitan areas that feel subservience to Knoxville. All right, World's Fair 1982, that's pretty decent, and all that. But, come on. Who else has subservience to Knoxville? Yeah. I'm Mark 30 about NASCAR and the Braves, respectively. And we will, no doubt, will be intrigued by at 1:45 if the late, hey, can he come on at this time? If that is actually, approved. Anyway, I'll let you know these things when